Now, I, like many, consider Twin Peaks to be one of the greatest TV shows of all time. However, not the greatest, in my opinion, due to the show getting screwed over by executives and TV companies. As the show's mystery was supposed to be revealed, much to Lynch and Frost's dismay. And one reason for this imperfection is Season 2. One of the most up and down seasons of TV you're likely to ever see, as the first 9 episodes are all very well made, acted and written. However, after this, co-creator Lynch left the show to film his film Wild at Heart. When other co-creator Frost was involved somewhat, his main focus was on writing the film's Storyville. David Lynch himself often stated in his interviews about how vital Frost was to the series, as people would often overlook Frost's contributions to the series as a whole.
It was interesting. It was because you make beautiful, beautiful work.
Now, well, let's
and
just
you tell
stop.
great stories.
Stop 1 second. Mark Frost and I, did that.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Frost is at least 50% of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved working with Mark. And we had a thing going, complementing one another, and the thing would flow. And so it was a very special experience.
And thus, with both of them having other things to deal with, the show's quality dipped, which brings me to the episode Slaves and Masters. The episode following several storylines, all of which are heavily critiqued, the first and most hated one being the James storyline. Now, James is a weird character and it's often kind of made fun of, whether it be his horrible singing,
Just you and I. Just you.
or this ill-thought-out line from Season 3.
James is still cool. He's always been cool. James is still cool. He's always been cool.
The post-reveal of the murderer, he leaves Twin Peaks and strikes up a romance with Evelyn, which eventually her husband is murdered and Evelyn and her secret lover Malcolm try to frame James for it. Now, this is commonly agreed to be the worst storyline in the entire series, as it's boring, dull, and is not interesting in any way. Now, during the episode, he tells Donna about the fact he'd been framed, about the murder. And one of the only really funny things about the episode is the policemen who all move and sit in unison. Donna and Evelyn argue at the same bar. Later on in the episode, Donna essentially saying James doesn't deserve this. He's a good person, and Evelyn being very nihilistic, all very melodramatic. Malcolm eventually comes into the bar, hits anyone with him, and threatens to kill Donna if he sees her again. James eventually goes back to Evelyn's house, asks her why she's trying to frame him. She urges him to leave due to the potential danger he's in. However, as he continues to argue with her, they eventually kiss. However, James is struck and knocked out by Malcolm.
Malcolm, what did you do?
Malcolm tries to get Evelyn to frame him again as a crazy person who broke into their home and killed him with a gun, which Donna witnesses from outside through the window. She runs in crying, begging Evelyn to not kill James. Evelyn backs off, refusing to kill James, much to Malcolm's dismay, and as he walks towards her, however, he is shot. Evelyn mutters the true story as to how her husband and Malcolm's death happened. Now, there are many problems with this episode, which are directly linked to this storyline. The big one being it trying to be all spooky and creepy, which doesn't work from the slow down scenes which just don't have that really any impact and feel dated, which while there are some dated aspects to the first season, I consider the best series in the entire show, they at least don't detract or ruin any big hard-hitting plot reveals or moments in my opinion. There's also the fact that you just don't really feel for the characters, as James and Donna as characters are very linked towards Laura Palmer, of course their relationship-wise, but also their relevance to the story. So much so, Donna isn't even in the return. And they even team up with Laura's cousin Maddie, played by the same actress as Laura, and James falls for her, due to her looking like Laura. Malcolm as well felt to me like a worse version of a character like Hank, as whilst Hank, at least to me, felt threatening, Malcolm never really did. Perhaps due to the charisma of Chris Mulkey, who despite not having that much screen time compared to other actors, still makes an impact to me, despite him only appearing in 13 episodes. Now there's Wyndham Earl. There's a very divisive character due to him being very over the top to the point of being almost cartoonish, like having multiple different disguises like a Scooby-Doo villain, and his character, in my opinion, just feeling very forced. And whilst the show is very goofy and campy, this just felt a bit off. Though the late Kenneth Welsh does a decent job of what he's given. Leo has gone missing after attacking Shelley and Bobby, and reported to Harry, which Bobby gets on the nerves of Harry. And the returning Albert, who is now best friends with Harry. An actual very funny idea, one of the most interesting parts of season 2 as a whole.
Looking good, Harry.
He informs Cooper and Harry about Wyndham Earl, who went crazy after his wife's death, Shows them the map of all the locations Earl has sent packages of his clothing from his wedding night to. Wyndham plays the flute and talks to Leo, informing him of his criminal record, and we find out he has kept a shot collar on Leo, thus making him his pawn. The chess allegory is very heavily featured in this episode. Harry and Cooper find the murder victim of Wyndham Earl, who had the very same last name as Wyndham's wife. And Cooper explains to Harry each time he moves a chess piece, someone dies. They decide to employ a chess expert, which ends up being Pete.
Coffee. You'd never guess. There was a fish in the percolator.
Who we see is highly skilled at chess, beating 3 people at once, and he agrees to help them with the investigation. We see Wyndham in the mirror putting on a new disguise. He is forcing Leo to write a letter addressed to Shelley, Audrey, and Donna. Cooper at the Great Northern, whilst waiting, walks towards the elevator, looks at a photo of Caroline. As he gets in the lift, walks past Earl, who has now disguised himself. He delivers a letter addressed to Audrey Hole. As Cooper returns to his room, in the bed is a death mask sculptured Caroline's face, and an audio tape from Wyndham Earl.
A truly beautiful woman, Caroline. Funny, isn't it? After all this time, after all that happened in Pittsburgh.
One issue I have, which the episode even had comments on, Cooper's clothes, which on face value might not seem that important. However, I think his suit kind of visually conveyed to the viewers the roles of each character. We see each FBI character wearing a black suit, and showed Cooper as an outsider, and him not having a fully understanding of Twin Peaks. And I think it goes against Cooper as a character, as he would always act professionally and be well dressed, from his pajamas to his suit, so much so in most of Cooper's other appearances post this, like Firewalk With Me and The Return, he wore a suit for his entire appearances. There are other small subplots, like Nadine losing her mind and believing she is back in high school, which results in her going out with Mike, which is just so silly and ridiculous, even for a show with giants and backwards talking dwarfs and a man whose hair turned white overnight. It just feels silly, and to me very forced, and trying to be weird, which I think Twin Peaks for the most part wasn't being weird for the sake of being weird. And the last major part of the episode is the Civil War part. And this is such a strange plot in my opinion. Essentially, Ben Horne goes insane due to him being implicated in the murder of Lord Karma, which he is proven to be innocent. However, as a trauma response, he begins to believe he is General Robert E. Lee, a general in the South during the American Civil War, and thus starts dressing up as him, and people around him, from his brother, Dr. Jacoby, and Audrey, begin to play along with him. His brother wants to keep him like this. However, Audrey cleverly uses her charm to tell him that if Philip is incapacitated for a long period, she would take over the family business, and thus they decide to try and help him by setting up a sort of play in which the South wins the Civil War, with Dr. Jacoby surrendering the North, which of course didn't happen in real life, and Ben, in what I believe to be a reference to the movie Patton, instead with the Confederate flag, gives his victory speech.
Too old and too cowardly to participate in that. No, sir, I have no love for war.
Ben then collapses and wakes up believing that he had a strange dream, which ends the storyline in a humorous fashion. This is just a very weird, uncanny storyline. I think whilst it doesn't work due to the ridiculousness of it, maybe it could work in a different show, as it's essentially Ben trying to cope with the situation from Laura's murder to Catherine Martell's schemes and the loss of One-Eyed Jacks, and I think shows his evilness given the fact he wants to rewrite history subconsciously as a Southern gent, showing Ben's darkness and the type of person he truly is. Which, whilst not a great storyline, there is an argument, it's possibly the dumbest subplot. It is played very well by Richard Beamer, who gives it his all in a ridiculous situation. There you go. That's what I consider to be Twin Peaks' worst episode. Some interesting plotlines like the James story, which I never really see anyone try to defend, or Nadine thinking she's back in high school, which is just so unbelievable and kind of makes the show look a bit jokey in my opinion, to the forced way in which it was directed, from the ill-timed slow-mos to just the direction in general, which I think feels like a fan trying to make a Twin Peaks episode. Overall, a really poorly written, uninteresting, and most actors give it their all due to the writing's quality, even they aren't able to save the episode.